On the day this goes up, it is Earth Day, so as well as that shaping this video, also in general it's the time, as really every day should be, that we make sure that we think about doing what we can for the Earth. Obviously, you can't do everything, or maybe if you're really lucky you can, but not necessarily having to do everything, and in turn there are certainly other things that certain corporations could be doing for their part, but within your means, just consider what you are doing, what you can do for the benefit of the world, nature, all of that sort of thing. With that said, hello and welcome to the Ragnarök Chronicles. My name is Dominic and this is the channel where we talk about the lore of the books that I am writing. Just a couple of notes before we begin with the actual content of this one. So to clarify, with it being a painting a picture of X, Y, Z. Technically we've only done one of these before, that was right near the beginning about the towers, but per the format of that one, we're simply going to be going around a general location, giving little bits of details of certain sections to paint a picture. With that in mind, I'm not going to be going into massive detail about any of these, we're simply going to give vague teases for, say, these different locations. There's not going to be any details like when they take place or the stories they're part of. Simply we're going to be starting based upon the maps you have in Britain, the west going to the east. In turn, I'm probably not going to get round to mentioning all of them or remember all of them. It's possible I'll skip over some unintentionally. In other cases, it may be that I haven't exactly determined precisely where this given thing is going to take place, so just more indicate a general area. And perhaps we don't have a given part of the world being looked at as an actual location in the books, yet nevertheless we'll have characters from there. So in those cases I won't be pointed out, but as we're going around, if you may notice that actually there seems to be this whole patch here that's not being looked at, that may be one of those cases. We'll have characters from there, at the very least. Also, otherwise, while the Ragnarök Chronicles are my main priority, I do have other stories I want to tell in other capacities as well, if I have the opportunities. In those cases, those may be where I look at those countries instead. Without further ado then, hello, thank you for picking planet Earth for your visit today. Hopefully we have, of our many locations available to you, something which may be of interest. For instance, if you're looking for something potentially out of the way yet unique and interesting, could we recommend the Pitcairn Islands out in the middle of the ocean, which have been repurposed to become a state-of-the-art facility for studying certain oddities that may be found elsewhere across the globe. It becomes a very important location, is the location of a summit of world leaders at a given point in time. So yes, we've got a very historical relevance there, and otherwise you may find during your visit certain peculiar occurrences showing up with what is being brought around and studied there. Studied from where? Well, we have other locations such as the Rocky Mountains. Again, perhaps a more traditional location in this case for people to visit. However, nevertheless, it can still have its own little hidden gems which others may not have realised before, be that wildlife or more actual physical places to visit and walk amongst. It's all buried around there if you look close enough. Maybe though you're not particularly interested in having to actively look and you'd rather have the spectacular element of the location jump out at you, in which case could we perhaps suggest Nova Scotia up here in Canada, specifically in a place called Shag Harbour, not chosen for its name, simply what has happened there in the past, in that you may find as you spend your days or nights by the seaside, something, as I say, jumping out at you if you're there at the right moment. Of course, for things watery, there is the infamous Bermuda Triangle, which if you do go in there, you may find many things that no one else has at least reported on before, things that you can explore in your own turn, but that has its own stigmas about it in terms of people maybe not wanting to take you in there quite so far. So for more locales that guides may be more comfortable with. You have New York, definitely just as, if not more, infamous, where as you go around the city you may also find opportunities for some experimentation of the genetic kinds, or maybe perhaps more technical experimentations are your thing, in which case we can come round to the given islands around the Caribbean, although you may have to wait for the window to be opened for you to enter that given facility. Or perhaps I'm detecting from you that that kind of technological side of things, with the window and the opening and the hidden and also the technical experimentation, maybe perhaps not your taste. Perhaps you want something a bit more historic, your ancient sort of things. Well, technically they are artifacts and they were built, and it's not technologically in the same human local way. Well, for that, in Venezuela, we have one Rodriguez DiMaggio, who may be able to guide you around the prehistoric plateau Auyán Tepui, where perhaps, again, if you are lucky enough, you might be able to locate a given temple within it, the Iadun, which is all definitely predating everything else that you have here technological-wise, so you can be sure to be away from all of that digital stuff. All of these so far have been rather passive. You're going there to just see and witness and experience. Maybe it's actually more the fact that you want to partake actively in something that's going on. Well, for that, we have down here in Argentina, where, while it's not the activity itself, we have some constructions of certain facilities, projectiles, but as part of that, you then have your bands of protesters, of rebels trying to do what is right. So you, if you go to this country down here in this part of the continent, can partake in those same strikes for justice and, say, righteousness. A little bit more vague with that one though, it being a whole larger country, yet not as vague as the ocean. Obviously not the Bermuda Triangle again, repeat locations, but in general, as you're going around these different seas, oceans, bodies of water free from the continents, you may come across some groups of people atop their ships. Let's not call them pirates. It's not officially that, no matter what others might say, but these communities who are indeed sailing about on the seven seas, doing as they will, as is their culture and what they will do as they do. You may join them for certain sporting events or for indulgences in things more akin to the mystics of divination, shall we say, or indeed for their own types of artifacts and tools relating more to the soul. They, as I say, you can find atop the waves, at least, well, it's over a large area, you may nevertheless have a higher chance of finding them than some couple of submarines off the coast of Senegal, although if you can find those, they are indeed unique in themselves. From the west coast of Africa to the east, we find next Tanzania, where despite all of what else might go on upon the planet, we will nevertheless find a place where humanity can come to harbour, to have even things brought there as well, to make sure that everyone can do the best that they can, and also with other means to depart again en masse if necessary. But either way, you can spend your time there not worrying about anything else that's going on under the shadow of Mount Kilimanjaro, just watching what shooting stars may come down and the likes, of surrounded by other things within the local environment, wildlife, etc. But of course, if we are talking about Africa, then we cannot forget Egypt in turn, which a number of cultures across this globe have taken interest in, especially their ancient cultures, although even though we may be able to study about the ancient things, the gods and the worship and the structures that they built, there may still be some things in turn which have been lost to the sands, which otherwise have been scrubbed from our consciousness. Maybe you could be the one to discover them again, although you may need the stones for it. Otherwise, of course, that connects to the Mediterranean Sea. Again, another popular location for going to as a tourist. Be sure to keep an eye out on the waves. Perhaps you'll see something coming up to display for you upon your resort or cruise ship, whatever it is, something which just letting itself be seen from otherwise existing more below in the depths. But then away from that, yet still maybe considered in a similar area, we have Spain here, of course, La Coruña specifically. We could take a whole marker and just stick that down there, sticking out of the planet to note that as a place where notable things may happen. Although, we shouldn't let that potentially cast a shadow up onto Ireland, where although it should be warned that we may get a little bit frosty there for an extended period of time, during which at least you may have the distraction of certain manifestations of vices, or that be warned of, again, those very same sins walking amongst you. Next to that, you have England, which, if you are wanting to more see the action of an adventure firsthand, at least at present, we have there that being the home of a group of people we may consider of the protagonist ilk. Of course, that will vary as time goes on, but for now, that may be your good starting point, a centre of things to happen. Otherwise, a little bit more quietly, you have your Belgium just on the mainland here. Again, you can find a quaint little town. Yes, they may have a little bit of infeuding between certain families, but for the most part, it's just your general life going on. I'm sure we don't need to worry about any newcomers there. They seem to be speaking the right stock. Talking of talking, perhaps you want to actively learn during your visit here. Now, there are schools in the England area. However, in regards to not repeating locations, we could instead suggest to you Denmark, Sweden, Poland, destination undecided, where, yes, there may be certain fairy tale aspects, as if at another world, but that's just a part of the learning experience. Or for maybe what's not necessarily taught, well, could be mentioned at school, but to learn more than what's immediately available at school. Maybe you want to go all the way to Switzerland / the French border to go to CERN itself to see the Large Hadron Collider, to be a part there, to be present during some very important scientific experiments and potentially discoveries and other projects that are going on around, under, beneath, that sort of space, in that state-of-the-art structure, facility. Or maybe you would prefer to see such a important technological location in a way that isn't as busy or active. Well, for that, where I don't actually know it is in this globe, it may be covered up by the top bit, but up here we have Spitsbergen, where instead you can find a facility that instead has become something of a shrine to people who believed in the work that was being done there before everything went dark. You can go there just to be a part of the remembrance of what was going on there, see the mechanisms that are still present, even if they're not actively working anymore. It itself not being too far from Moscow in Russia, where its own important decision will be being made. Perhaps you'll want to witness that. Again, there's lots of things to see that are happening across this world. But from across this world to perhaps out of this world, in general over your Middle Eastern region, here be dragons as we go forth and see perhaps what is not belonging of this world. I mean, it may even be so peculiar and strange, unexpected, that the space itself doesn't know what to make of it, what actually could be seen inside. There's certainly more mystery to it than the work going on in Hyderabad in India, although that's not to say that that work there isn't any less important in its anti-satellite weapon development programs. Near to which, again, is the Himalayas, with Mount Everest, which, while technically not being the tallest mountain on the planet, is regarded by many as such. It's infamous. It's also the site of the last acts of a important historic group nestled in there amongst those mountain ranges, but for which are for an actual holiday location. Well, I say holiday location, there's still a bit of work to do there, a bit of espionage, actiony stuff, but technically it's off the main job. Either way, for that, we can make our way over to Japan before, to the south of that, finding Australia, where we will be having some other, again, technologies being built upon, different once more to everything else elsewhere, which you may be able to hire out so long as you are not working for the company that they in turn are refusing to cooperate with, because somebody has to stand up to them. Things certainly are running deep down here, although by comparison, depending on when exactly it is that you meet this place, it may not be the deepest that you can go for right in its centre, which we cannot see here. Again, depending if you're there at the right time, there may be, in essence, a whole other world for you to visit beneath the surface. Hopefully, any of those locations may interest you. Whichever it is, please let us know and we will organise a trip for you there for your duration for the fees that are included in your package. Either way, if you wish to find out more, there are other videos on this channel which may indeed enlighten you as to specific areas, although you should be aware that many may not pertain to this world exactly, but rather other services we provide from across the cosmos. If you pick the England package, which as we say is where you will find the protagonist Strain, you will also have the opportunity to purchase records of the accounts adventures themselves, although those will cost extra. Prices specifically you can check out via the links below. Whereas otherwise, if there are other services you may be more interested in instead, you can stick around with this channel to find out more, to see what there is to come in the future. Please do, and whichever you choose, however, the main thing is to remember to keep on appreciating this earth. As I say, doing what you can within your means to look after it.